Hey y'all, I figured I'd make a quick video on my strategy around auto detect. Now this strategy isn't perfect by any means. The market fluctuates quite often, so therefore it's really hard to be that predictive with auto detect, but these are my successful strategies that I've had with auto detect and continue to have with auto detect, and just thought I would share. The first part of auto detect that I do is I go and I look at the market, right? I see what the market's averaging and where it's heading, and then based on that, I can kind of build my strategy. So to do that, I simply just, I go to TradingView, and I just look at the total market cap minus BTC, and then based on these market caps and where these RSIs are going, or the CCI, I can then kind of gauge where I'm going to set my auto detect to hopefully be most successful. In this particular example, it is March 26th. It's around 11 a.m. Eastern time, and as you can see, that the market's bouncing back from a pretty devastating blow the last few days, and because of that, my strategy is going to be a little bit more aggressive because the market's a little bit more aggressive. So if I hop back over to the QuickPump bot and I go to my settings, I'm really going to be eyeing the coin detection threshold and the coin detection time intervals as my main two adjustments to adjust to the market. So because the market seems to be doing fairly well today, I would lower my percentage threshold to kind of mirror that, right? So I would probably go to like a 1.5% threshold, and I would lower this number down since things fluctuating fairly quickly. I would lower this down to probably between a 10 to 20 second intervals and kind of play with those intervals a little bit. So for this example, we'll just set it for 10 seconds in intervals. The volume change is a 24-hour volume change, so this really doesn't have a lot of impact on it. But if you want to increase the the volume to make sure you're getting a coin that's got a decent amount of volume in the last 24 hours, you can mess with this. I'll leave mine at 0.04 just for this particular instance. When it comes to the market cap, I've touched this before, but I'll go a little bit more involved. So if you're wanting to target what we would consider like poop coins, you would lower this market cap, obviously, because the market cap of an alt that's not very popular is going to be far lower than other coins in their market cap. So if you want to target those coins, just lower the market cap. If you want to target the big dogs, then you would raise the coin detection price to that of the bigger coins. So just to go back here real quick, so coin detection max market cap, you can target this to target smaller coins, and that's primarily the use I use it for. The coin detection minimum, this you can use both to target all coins, right? In this particular example, or you could raise this up a little bit and target the larger coins. It just depends on what your particular strategy is. I like to do the whole entire market. That way I can also pick up pumps of smaller coins that like to get picked by these other pump groups that we may not be aware of. So I will, sometimes I will target this, just depending on what my strategy for that day is. If the bigger coins are the only ones that are strong that day, I might come in here and adjust the coin detection minimum to something a little bit more aggressive with some of the bigger coins. Now to make it to where you're continuing to buy sell, you need to make sure that you have the restart detection after the order is triggered checked. This is what controls the bot to restart after you've met your targets of the previous trade. So make sure that's checked. And also make sure that the reinvest profits is checked. That way you're taking the profits that you're making from the previous trade and you're investing it in the current trade. The coin detection pairs, this has been key for me here lately. When the market is kind of flat and not at a peak, it's just stable, I tend to more geared towards my trades towards USDT. That's just personal preference, but I've also seen here lately that when the market's flat, it seems like USDT seems to be a little bit higher percentage-wise, which seems to trigger the auto detect at a little better frequency. I haven't really dug into exactly why that is. It's just I just tested it worked, and I kind of just left it alone. But you can detect all these coins pairs if you like, or you can just use BTC, whatever you're comfortable with. The other part of my strategy is, depending on the market, do I set a straight up target where I just, I want 2% and then move on, get another 2% and then move on, and keep doing that, hopefully, a dozen or more times a day. That way I'm watching my overall bag slowly increase, right? The stop loss is key to the market trends, right? The market's up a little bit, so I could probably lower the stop loss down to 3 or 4%. You always want to give the coin a little bit of time to recover if you're buying it at a peak. What I mean by that is if at the time that you go to purchase that coin, you may be purchasing it at its peak, and then it's going to go down a little bit. You need to take an account for that down percentage within your stop loss to allow it to recover, or else you're just going to constantly keep losing, right? So this is really important on the market trends. So if the market is trending up, I'm probably going to put my stop loss a little bit lower. If the market is flat or trending down, I'm going to increase that stop loss to a higher percentage to allow coin recovery. I hope that makes sense. Now, if the market is really aggressive, or I'm targeting a new coin or new coins, trailing stop loss really comes into play. And you got to remember how this works, right? So if as an example, I've got my trailing stop loss set to 4%. Okay, let's say you buy that coin, and as soon as you buy that coin, it goes up to 1/4%, right? Now your stop loss on that 1/4% rise is going to be 3 3/4% fall. Meaning, if it only got to 1/4% and then it instantly falls 3 3/4%, that coin is then going to sell, right? So in a different example, on the rise, if that coin would rise 4% and then go to 0, it would sell at 0% because it's a trailing stop loss. Meaning that 4% between the profit and the loss is always trailing. That loss is always trailing that profit. So to get 4% profit on a 4% trailing stop loss, that coin has to hit 8%. When it hits 8% and then backs down to 4%, it's going to sell right at that 4%. Okay, I'm gonna repeat this again. So if that coin rises to 8%, that will not trigger a sell. That sell will trigger on the loss, right? Hence the trailing stop loss. So you go 8%, it trails down to 7, it trails down to 6, 5, and then bam, 4. When it hits that 4% profit target from the 8% profit target, that's when it triggers that sell. I know that's confusing, but it's a trailing stop loss. It's meant to trail that target so you don't lose your butt, right? So if it went up to 10% and then stopped and then started going back down 9, 8, 7, 6%, see, that's a 4% difference, right? Because that's your trailing stop loss is 4% difference from the target to the loss, right? Okay, we'll move on to limits. So limits is fairly cut and dry, right? So you're taking your trailing stop loss, but you're setting the limits to it, right? You're setting a profit target limit. So this is really good in like big pumps. So if I set my target percentage to 140% and set my trailing stop loss to 20%, and that pump rockets off and it hits 140%, I'm going to take profit at 140%. I'm pretty much cutting my greed and saying, hey, if it hits 140%, I'm happy with that. But if it doesn't hit 140%, let's just say it hits 139%, and your trailing stop loss is 20%, right? It's going to drop down, and you're going to get that 20% under that 139%, right? Excuse me. So that's going to give you 119% profit. So that's where the trailing stop loss target kind of, it could either benefit you or you could lose out a little bit, right? So you really got to take into consideration, you know, what your strategy is and really stick to it. So if you're happy with 140%, then set that target at 140%. It reaches it, it sells, you gain 140%. If you think it's going to go beyond 140%, don't set targets. Just set your trailing stop loss, and when it gets to that percentage of your likings, either match the market sell, or if it's going too quickly, just understand that you're going to have that 20% flux, right? It hits 160 and starts backing off. It's going to sell at 140 unless you manually sell it. So you just got to understand, you know, what your strategy is and really stick to it. So in a nutshell, that's my strategy, guys. It's not rocket science. It's not difficult. It's just, you know, the market really determines those strategies, right? So market's strong right now. I'm going to lower my thresholds. I'm going to lower my intervals. The market's slower. I'm going to probably raise my thresholds a little bit, and I'm going to raise my intervals, right? So, you know, that coin's got to hit a taller percentage, or a plus more percentage in a longer period of time, so I can put trust in my auto detect to pick a coin that's rising and not falling. I hope that makes sense, guys. So the market's flat, the market's slower. You want to increase your thresholds in your intervals to match that slowness. The market's fast, the market's increasing. You want to lower your thresholds because you want to pick those coins that are fastly moving, right? Their target percentages are increasing at a much faster rate than in a flat market or a market that in the last few days has been quite poor. You know, you really need to increase those thresholds so you can take an account for that market flux. Guys, I hope this helps. I'm not going to go into details on, you know, how to start the bot and all that. I think I covered that in my previous videos. I just really wanted to cover my auto detect, really want to make you guys understand how it works. And how I use it, and hopefully this helps, right? Hopefully you guys can understand this logic, and it increases your profits. Please let me know if there's anything in the future you guys want to see. Either reach out to the admins, or I'm now a moderator now in QuickPump. I'm more than happy to create those videos, answer your guys' questions, set up calls, whatever it needs to help you guys succeed. I'm here for you. So thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk at you soon.